The demo is around the corner, and here are the changes that await you there. Hello there, it's Kurzuk from Kurzuk Studio here. In this episode, I'll continue going through the major changes from the recent Steam playtest update. Last time I covered quest expansion, dialogues, map updates, and the location replacement. This time I'll move over to the audio improvements and the runner level. Now, over to the audio improvements. First off, sound effects. I already touched on it in the dialogue section, but more was added. In fact, the previous version lacked sound effects in general. I decided to start with UI and covered all menu buttons and world UI interactions like in the personal assistant with different sounds, as in my opinion it makes such a difference. Another important addition was for world interactions. For example, when the newsfeed is triggered or the character bumps into some obstacle in the runner level or when you're triggering the terminal, all covered now. With the terminal, by the way, I recorded different key hit sounds and applied different ones for different keys. Here's how it sounds. And now to the part which I am personally very proud of, the new tracks. I spent a good bit of time getting a hang of music production with Sonar, mostly learning all the moving parts of the software. I also had to put time into learning how Serum works, with all the filters, shapes, envelopes, effects, ARPs and the rest. Now, two important things here. No way am I claiming that I know both very well now, and I'm not particularly starting from scratch, as I already knew some of the music theory from back in the day, so there is a lot of room for improvement. But after spending some time, I managed to create 3 additional soundtracks for the game. Before the update, there were really just 3 tracks, or better to say 2 loops and 1 track. 1 loop in the main menu, 1 in the runner level, and for the rest of the gameplay there was just 1 same track playing. Cannot say that I was particularly impressed with the situation, even though that was the plan for the demo release. But honestly, I couldn't leave it like that, so I flexed my arse and created 3 new tracks, 1 for apartments, 1 for the office area including the street and virtual office itself, and 1 for Zona 4. I know that what I showcased now is not enough to judge, but I would really appreciate any input on this. Runner level improvements. That's an area which I really wanted to bring into good shape. The reason is simple, it was boring, like very. And this area also has an interesting past. While all the other areas were supposed to be included in the demo from the start, the runner level was like one of those very distant relatives who you're not really thinking about very often. In fact, my initial thought was to omit it from the demo completely. I even created a nice overlay over a shitty runner area which I created just to test the feature, though then I decided that I wanted to showcase all the features to some extent in the demo, so slowly but surely I started to build it. At first it was just a run and jump over minigames, so the character would always run to the left and you couldn't control him other than those 2 actions. That was pretty much the state of the first playtest version. When I got feedback, well, let's say it wasn't particularly good, for which I'm actually very grateful. As there is no jump, but specifically jump over action, guys were struggling with jumping over the very first obstacle, which makes sense specifically when you don't know which key to use. I'm telling you, very distant relative. The scene would just restart without any feedback. If you bumped into something, automatic restart. So after the feedback, I decided to change my approach and upgraded the level from very distant relative to close family. So right away I included vertical movement and changed the keys to trigger jump over and slide. I also added hints above and an outline on the first obstacle, so players would know where and what to press to jump over. I added a hint for the slide alongside as well. Played it and still wasn't impressed. The reason was that even though you have the ability to move vertically, there is no point to do so, as there are no obstacles. At that point, I thought that it would be a good idea to add walking NPCs, as I currently have in Zona 4, though in Zona 4 NPCs are moving only horizontally, so to introduce it, I really had to either create a new specific script or change the current one with conditional behavior. But instead, I decided to use some static objects for now. There is a reason for that, and I will express it right after I cover the next section, as they are related. Menu and game over animations. As I mentioned previously, on game over the game was just restarting the level when the character would hit the obstacle. There was no menu pop-up, no message, just a restart. So I added the menu into the level. That was the first step, which simply makes sense, and then I continued with animations. That required way more labor. There are several ways to lose, either bump into the barrels, into the glass, or into the pole. Each one required its own animation, which I created and added. The glass required more work, as it's not just the character who is supposed to be animated, but also the glass itself, and it also required a new script, but that wasn't particularly hard, specifically when you work on the project long enough. I also added a guard who spawns off screen, runs to the character and beats the shit out of him, every time. Now, I told you that I'll tell you why I decided to leave the NPC introduction into the level until later. The reason is the animations, as in that case I'll have to create full animations for each of the NPCs as well. At the end of the day, it would be peculiar if they just continued the journey as usual after someone bumped into them. So I'm not disregarding the idea and will implement it, but not in the demo version. And by the way, those fogs will be moving horizontally and vertically to make it even more interesting. And that's it for this part. In the next episode, I'll cover the visual and world improvements, menu and UI changes, terminal improvements, and Steam achievements. That's pretty much it for today. Subscribe to the channel if you want to track the development process of NORMA Story of One platform, visit the game's Steam and itch.io pages, and if you like what the game looks like so far, consider wishlisting it on Steam and spreading the word about the game. Have a very nice day, night, or whichever time of the day it is for you now, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.